guys, welcome to the Klingberg Motorsport YouTube channel. If it is your first time here, my name is Jared and today I'm diving into a new build. It's probably more of an engine conversion than a build, right? So this is my mate's beautiful DATSUN 200B, so 1977 DATSUN coupe, obviously. It has a beautiful set of SSR Mark IIs on it, and yeah, it's a very nice car. So he bought this car as a bit of a wreck, actually, back in about 7, maybe 8 years ago. I'd have to double check that, but yeah, when he bought the car, it was very rusty, and he has spent he spent the first few years that he had it rebuilding it. So actually, funny story, he actually was 3/4 of the way through building this car, and yeah, I actually got married back in 2020, and I hit him up about having the car in the wedding, which he said yes to, but he had to do a lot of work in a very short period of time to get it finished. So he did me a solid and knocked that build out, sort of thing. So yeah, such a nice car. So I'm very excited to be able to do this engine conversion on it. So we went over a few engines that could go in this car. He actually had I think it was a K24 that he had, like a Honda engine, and he had all some conversion bits and stuff for it. And then, yeah, we sort of ummed and ahed about it, and budget and time and everything. We went through all the options, and we actually come back to an SR20. So, old faithful SR. It is going to be a non-turbo engine that's going in the car. So we have an S14, like a NA S14 engine. So it's still VCT SR20. And yeah, pretty much this still runs the standard L20B, obviously. It is a rebuilt engine currently. You know what, we're just looking for a little EFI reliability, if I'm being honest, sort of thing. So sometimes it doesn't start that well, sometimes it doesn't run well when it's cold. It can be a bit of a pain to get running and whatnot. So we're looking for some of that turnkey reliability that an SR will deliver, basically. So, and obviously this is, a 2-litre, and an SR20 is also a 2-litre. So we're kind of just like for like swapping it. This build will be a drive-in, drive-out scenario, basically. So as you've seen there at the start, it is a running, driving car currently. And the aim of the game, if within about 8 weeks, this car is going to be driving out of here with an SR20 in it. So I've got a lot of work to do between now and then, but I'm hoping all of you will enjoy this and come along for the ride and hit that subscribe button to stay up to date. So today, yeah, I'm basically going to pull this L20B out. First, I'm going to drop the gearbox, and then we'll pull the bonnet off and remove the engine. And then from there, we should get an SR20 sitting in here, I reckon. So enough of my chit chat, let's dive in. All right, out with the old L20B is out. That's the last Datsun you're going to power. All right, that's probably a lie. That will go into another Datsun, but yeah. So out with the old, in with the new. All right, new-ish, newer. As I said before, it is a non-turbo SR20 out of out of an S14 apparently. So yeah, VCT still. There's not much to it. I haven't been over it. I will go over this engine at some stage, but I'm going to get it mounted up first. And yeah, so I'm going to get it mounted, get the gearbox mounted and everything. I'm going to go through that in a sec, what I'm using, and do headers and all the fabrication stuff. I think I am actually going to use an S13 radiator, or S15 probably in this case. Get it all mounted, get all the mounts done from everything, work out all the fabrication work I need to do, and from there I'm going to pull the engine back out and I'm going to not rebuild it. I'm probably going to leave the bottom end as it is, but I might go ahead and put a head gasket and some head studs in it. I'll reseal it all, put front and rear mains in it, probably put a bigger sump on it. Yeah, go through a few things. I am pretty seasoned in the old SR20 game. I used to run one in the drift car for many years. Have broken many of them. Yeah, so I know them pretty well. So I used to run an S13 engine in the drift car. This is obviously an S14 engine, but much of a muchness. Obviously this has VCT and that's about the only difference in it. Bottom end's the same essentially, and yeah. This engine has sat for a very long time, which is the reason I want to pull it down. It has some oil leaks that I need to attend to. Yeah, this oil leak here, it's hard to tell what it's coming from. It's either a front main that's leaking, or these are pretty common to leak, like in here between the oil pump and the head. So it could possibly be from that. That's another reason why I want to strip it down and yeah, give it the old rattle can rebuild again. So a few bits and pieces to go over on it. It was an auto engine, so it doesn't have a Spiger bush in it. Yeah, obviously it doesn't have an alternator. It has no power steering. This doesn't have power steering yet. That is something that, like, we kind of discussed it, because there's obviously the way of bolting this in with an S13 cross member, and then you can use power steering, and then you've got to do obviously it currently has a steering box in it. Yeah, so obviously that would mean that I'd have to change the steering column to suit it and everything, and there's a lot of stuff around there because you probably have to do knuckles and yeah, like uprights, so like new struts and everything, which I'm probably going to look into this time. But yeah, just doing the steering box delete sort of thing, putting the rack in it, like a rack and pinion in it. There'd be a fair bit of work involved in that. So am I going to do that? I'm not sure. Yeah. So I'm gonna chuck this in and see how we go, basically. These are just the stock engine mounts that I've got bolted on there, and I believe they will work with some modifications. So I'll probably modify this part of the engine mount on on this block, and I don't know, we'll see how we go. For now, I'm going to chuck this in so we can work on the next piece of the puzzle. Well, that was easy. Seem to be on a roll of easy engine conversions. So it is sitting there on, they're just some random Mazda, like rear-wheel drive Mazda 323 engine mounts. I think, I'll double check which ones they are. I was going to use the standard DATSUN engine mounts, like the rubber. But yeah, they just needed to be a little bit taller for it to sit square. Found these engine mounts, chucked them in. They're probably 10 to 15 mil taller than the standard ones. So that is the standard engine mount from the 200B. So yeah, the mounts that are in there are about 10 to 15 mil taller than that. I was going to try SR20 mounts, but they're big and ugly, and they're a little bit too thick, should I say. So like you can see, they're almost double the thickness of a 200B engine mount. So yeah, so the ones that I've chucked in there, the Mazda ones, they're actually a happy medium, and suspiciously they fit very well. So looking at the bottom, obviously if you're doing an engine conversion, you don't want the sump sitting lower than the cross member, And it's literally like perfect. I mean, it's leant back a little bit at the moment, but you can see it's literally like dead on. Yeah, so SR's set on a little bit of an angle, but you know what angle to mount the engine on because the bottom of the sump is flat. That is the part of the engine that should at least line up to be, you know, horizontal sort of thing, so level. The rest of the engine just sits on a slight lean. You can kind of see it there. Yeah, so it's obviously just balancing because it currently has no gearbox, because that is the next piece of the puzzle. So this is a very common thing I know in the Corolla community. It's a trick to bring an SR20 shifter closer to the engine. And that trick is an RB gearbox. So these RB gearboxes, this one and this one, I'm kind of thinking they're RB30 gearboxes, but they're all the same. They have the same bolt pattern and whatnot as SR bell housings. So you can see here with this one next to this one, so this is the SR20 gearbox, and this one here, say RB30, so all the mounts line up, and then where the shifter sits is actually like 60 mil shorter, roughly 60 to 80 mil shorter sort of thing. So pretty much all you do is you swap the bell housing off the SR20 gearbox onto the RB20 gearbox, or RB30 gearbox in this case, and that will move the shifter position forward, so you don't have to run like a dogleg shifter or anything. I am going to get some measurements first to double check that this is the case, and I will need to run this. So they have the same gear set in them. They're just a shorter, like back half of the gearbox, if that makes sense. So from that plate back, they're shorter. From that plate forward, they're the same length, like same length input shaft and everything. Yeah, so, but like I said, I'm going to just get a quick measurement to the shifter position, and then I'll go from there as to whether I will, run an SR gearbox or an RB gearbox in it. All should be pretty straightforward. Like the position of this engine is, so this is about where it sits, right? That's pretty far forward. Like it's a fair gap between the firewall and the back of the engine, but that's actually what the standard L20 was in it. There was at least 80 mil gap between the firewall and the back of the engine. And I quickly ran a tape measure over before we started, and the L20, like back of the engine to the center of the engine mount, is roughly the same as the SR20. So that kind of all worked out pretty good. To be honest, I'm gonna see how the shifter position works. I'd like to move this engine back 20 mil, to be honest. It does make it painful getting to the like bell housing bolts or the rocker cover bolts, etc., if you were to take the rocker cover off in the car. But in such a small engine bay, I mean, it's not tiny, right? But in such a small engine bay, this room here is very, is needed sort of thing. So especially if we decide to run a clutch fan in here, you have to fit a fan shroud and everything. So yeah, like I said, I'm just gonna chuck this up on the hoist, and then we're just gonna have a quick measure and see what the distance is between the back of the engine and the shifter position, and we'll go from there. Okay, so what we're looking at here is probably not the flywheel face. Looking for the actual gearbox face. So where the gearbox bolts up there to the center of the shifter hole is roughly, what are we looking at there? 770, roughly 770. So now I can work out whether I need an SR gearbox or an RB gearbox based off of that. I already know that the SR gearbox is 800 because I measured that. I measured that one from there to there. Yeah, 800. So what we want to do is we want to find a shorter option than that. The RB one might actually be a little bit too short. But I'd rather the shifter be a little bit forward than a little bit back. So let's chuck that one on there. So we're looking at, I mean, roughly 745, 750 probably, let's say. So let's just double check this again. So 750 is there, right? Or 800 is back there. So 750, definitely the best option in this case. So I think I'm going to swap a housing over. Like I said, this stuff's all very straightforward, pretty much exactly the same as the RB25 stuff if you've watched me do that. it is, yeah, very straightforward. So some bolts here. I don't know if this one even has a detent on it on the shifter. Doesn't look like it does. So yeah, just these bell housing bolts, and we'll rip them apart. Obviously, these are two very unknown gearboxes, right? So I'm not going to do all this work and get to the point where it turns out these gearboxes are shagged or something. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to pull both of these boxes apart, and I'm going to have a look and see which of these two is usable, sort of thing. Like I said, I know nothing about them. I'm just putting two and two together and working out that they're RB boxes, and the fact that one's a little bit different to the other. One might be an RB, like one has a slightly different rib here on the bell housing to this one. Just there, that's slightly different to that one. So whether one of these is an RB20 box or what, but I'm gonna say this has a cable drive on it, which very much looks to me like that is an RB30 gearbox. So yeah, and the fact that some of these bolts are loose, I'm gonna say that someone's pulled some of these apart before, so yep, I'm gonna dive in and see which one of these is best. I successfully made a mess again. So got all three gearboxes stripped down, trying to work out what's what with it, because I got them in parts. I wasn't sure what the go was with everything. One didn't have, actually you could see both RB20, they're actually RB30 boxes, I think. Boxes had been pulled apart. You could see all the loose bolts on them. So this one here is missing a speedo drive. This one has the speedo drive. This one probably looks the best condition, I think. There is some slight differences in them. Once again, I don't actually know what the differences are. You can see this one has a different plate to this one. So obviously this one still has a selector rod that goes through that hole. It's still in that housing. But yeah, so this plate's different. This one has a bigger plate. This one has this little, I'm guessing it's like a selector helper thing on this selector here, on this, what is it, to reverse. Everything else on this side looks all right. These are actually really good looking gearboxes, I think, for relatively unknown gearboxes, you know what I mean? Like you're always taking a chance on this stuff. So, and this SR box, I'm pretty confident it is a S14 gearbox, because have a look at the meaty selectors. So that's first, second selector, third and fourth. Look at the difference in them. So that's first, second, and that's third and fourth. Sort of like tiny compared to that big boy. It's also got bigger synchros in it, so a bigger hub, and yeah, actual synchros itself. This is much smaller. These are more like RB25 synchros compared to these gearboxes. So I'm going to say these are RB30, like one possibly older, like early RB30, one a little bit later RB30, I'm not sure. Maybe one's a 31 gearbox, one's a VL gearbox, I'm not exactly sure. So either way, they're both the same, they're both usable. Yeah, this gearbox, very strange, right? I've never pulled a gearbox apart and had like everything in the gearbox. It's like it's never had an oil change in its life. All the inside of the bell housing was all like black from like oil stain, and the oil itself came out of it pretty good. But yeah, like I said, the color of the selectors there, those selectors are supposed to be like that. Look at the color of them. So very dirty. Lots of weird stuff with it, to be honest. It is like, it's still not bad. There's still like, it's the gears aren't changing color. They're not like going black. There's a little bit of wear on them maybe, but you can see that once my phone focuses. These bearings have been changed before at some stage in its life, and they've left the seals in them. Yeah, that's very odd. I haven't pulled a S14 SR box apart before, so like the later of the 5-speed Sylvia boxes. but I'm pretty sure that they're all supposed to look like that with no seals in them. So yeah, someone's definitely, like seals in both sides as well, so inside and outside. And yeah, you're supposed to remove the seals so that the oil gets into the bearings and yeah, works its way through everything. So a little bit odd. I haven't pulled the rear housing off. I'm probably not going to. Like I said, I'm going to make this conversion work with those RB30 gearboxes. We have a couple of them, so if one does break in the future, which I don't think it's going to with NA power, we have a spare. But in this case, yeah, this SR box is going to go on the shelf to use another day, I reckon. Yeah, so now I'm going to fiddle around with that, get those parts back together, get everything. I want to get, like I've just got them outside, degreasing the housing and stuff. I actually found this, like this is the SR20 like snout that holds the clutch fork. And you can see that bit there is not supposed to be detached. So yeah, that's broken off of there before, so I'm guessing that's why this gearbox was removed at some stage. That's okay, because I have some spares here that I will use, so we'll chuck one of them in. I'm probably going to completely finish this gearbox and seal it up, I think. I've taken some measurements, and I don't want to jinx it, but heck, everything looks really close. Even the standard gearbox cross member for the like 200B, it looks like it's going to line up with the like RB box bolted behind the SR. So yeah, scary how easy some things bolt together sometimes. Obviously it's a Nissan and it's getting Nissan parts technically. Let's get it. She's in. Little bits and pieces here that I have to do still, but yeah, so sway bar is definitely not going to clear. So I'm pretty sure R31 Skyline front sway bars are the go for this. So they've got like a little bit more of a bend in them here. So I've got one of them on its way. These are in fact rear-wheel drive 323 Mazda engine mounts, and they line up. So it's got a little slot to line up with the dowel thing there. And yeah, sits in the right spot, which is, yeah, unheard of. So, and well, obviously it's not unheard of because it's happening. Gearbox cross member. So this is the standard 200B cross member, bolts in. This is the standard SR20 gearbox mount, bolts in. It does need a little bit of finessing, so I'm going to pull this cross member back out. You can see here, like I've just dropped the bolts down a bit. So I'm going to weld a 10mm plate to the top of the cross member here. So obviously you could just put a plate in as a spacer, but I actually want to weld it in so that there's no chance of it like rattling or anything. So, but yeah, because I want to have that clearance up the top. You can't really see up the top here to the trans tunnel, because I don't want to make any trans tunnel modifications if I can avoid it. I haven't got in the car yet, but see how the shifter is right at the front of the hole. I just need to double check the position of that with the center console in. So I'm going to jump in there in a sec and just double check that the center console, like where it sits on the factory hole, because naturally the shifters have a little bit of a like kink in them sort of thing. So they point back, you can imagine, like that's in neutral there, and then they kind of face back a little bit. So yeah, I just need to double check that does have the right kink in it sort of thing up there, and it is going to clear the center console and everything. So yeah, bolt-in affair essentially. Once again, this is the VN all over again. The standard clutch sleigh cylinder bolts in is ridiculous, isn't it, right? So yeah, I had another one sitting here and I sort of held it against that one, and I was like, that's funny because they are exactly the same. So yep, bolts up, same clutch line and everything. So I haven't got a fork in there at the moment because no clutch. I have to pull this apart again anyway because I'm going to, like I said, give her a rattle can rebuild. Now here's the funny part. The tail shaft is going to bolt in. So I took some measurements, like center bearing bolts to the front of the tail shaft. Yeah, and measured this to the center, and I checked the spline on that, and you wouldn't bloody read about it. It's gonna fit. It's yeah. It is literally a bolt-in job sort of thing. So I don't think an SR box would be as direct. So like I said, this is obviously the RB30 box in it. So the tail shaft would be a little bit long to suit that. It would be, you can imagine it'll be sitting in here, right? And that's the center of the shifter at the moment. So this is the bit that I need to check in a minute. That would be 60 mil back. So that center line there would go all the way back here somewhere. And then the same thing with the gearbox, it would be 60 mil longer. So the tail shaft wouldn't quite fit, I don't think. It was an SR box in the car. So, but yeah, crazy, isn't it? Everything just bolts in. I like Nissan sometimes they just work. Yeah, so from here, I'm going to drop it back down, check shifter position, and then start going over some stuff on the motor and radiator and all this stuff. And yeah, we're working towards some real spicy headers here. So got a few more things to check out. Yep, she definitely bolted straight in. That is crazy, man. So that's like a little dust cover, and it's sitting pretty close to the back of the gearbox there, so I'm going to cut that back. But I do have the other dust cover to go back on this part of the gearbox. So yeah, even if I take that dust cover all the way off the tail shaft, it's probably not going to be a big deal. This conversion is going to be a lot shorter than what I was thinking it was going to be, so that's good. This is the standard alternator plug off of the L20, and guess what? It plugs straight into a SR20 alternator. Some of these things, I tell you. So if this motor and gearbox and everything were ready to go and I was dropping it in, it would be a very quick turnaround, to be honest. This is, yeah, obviously the wiring stuff and that, but it's the headers that I'm going to probably spend. Headers and exhaust, I reckon it's going to take me 2 weeks to make them. So, but yeah, the rest of it, pretty straightforward. I got to get on the old interwebs and order some parts. I'm going to put a bigger sump on it. It's going to get, yeah, like I said, I'm not sure about a head gasket and stuff, but all new seals, thermostat, probably water pump. Yeah, we'll see when we get the sump off what the bearings look like. Once again, if there's no metal in the sump, I'm just going to leave it because it will be a-okay. It's only going to run a stock tune and stuff to start with, so yeah, it's going to be good to go. Also, I didn't touch on it. Being an RB30 box, it actually has a manual speedo drive, so like a cable that comes out of it, which looks very much like that one. SR gearboxes are electric, so that's one upside to having an RB box. I'm not sure if all RB30 gearboxes are like that, or just some, or just VLs or whatever, but anyway, these ones, manual, and it comes with, wherever it was, I'm not sure, the speedo drive that it came with, and you'd never guess what, it's identical to this one, it's just got a different size gear on it. So yep, speedo also going to bolt straight in. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. The speedo will be out in it, but in saying that, this diff that is in it, which like I said is a WRX diff, that's actually a 4:4 ratio. So the speedo would have been out anyway, basically. So I'm going to swap this little unit over and run the cable obviously into the speedo hole. yeah, I've got another gear and stuff here to swap it over with to suit the RB boxes. To be honest, we are ticking jobs off very quickly. Yeah, it's like I said, the engine's in this car at the moment. I'm going to make everything, work out radiator hoses and stuff, but I'm going to mount a standard SR20 radiator in it, so it's going to be standard SR radiator hoses. But the exhaust, like I said, that's the main bit. That needs to, I want to get most of it tacked up, and then I'm probably going to pull the engine and box out, make a few brackets off of the engine and box, so I'll go through it as I do it. And yeah, and then I'll finish welding it up out of the car sort of thing. So we're getting there. Okay, so obviously the engine is bolted in. It's sitting in there, but it's not there to stay. I've changed my mind. Sat down, pondered about it for quite some time, and I think, I mean, you can't see it currently, but the shifter is right at the front of the hole sort of thing at the moment, and I'm going to shift the engine position. Like I said, it does bolt in, and why would I not just leave it? Like, it is in a pretty similar position, right? Because like the back of the engine's here, obviously. I think it's about 10 mil further forward than the L20 was in there. So it would be fine. Like, it's not a race car. Yeah, we're not talking about weight distribution or anything here. So why would I do it? Well, just to keep me happy, basically. Obviously, we need to fit some fans in here of some description. So the further back I get the engine, the easier that's going to be. So I'm going to try and get the engine maybe 30 to 40 mil further back from where it is at the moment. That will put the shifter in a better position. That will put this here in a better position to the firewall. We'll gain some room here for radiator hose plumbing. So this is just an S13 top hose. But yeah, you can see the height difference, and it's obviously very close currently. So if I gain 30 mil there, then that can only be a good thing. And obviously if I can gain 30 mil here, we can almost get back to the point where we can put a clutch fan in it. So, and that's the aim of the game, I think. I would like to get a clutch fan in it. Obviously, worst case scenario, if a clutch fan doesn't fit, I'll do thermos, but I do want to try and avoid that. So I've obviously got room here to the clutch master, so I want to, try and squeeze this engine back a bit. Yes, it's a lot of work, for small benefits probably, but it's just, I want to do it to keep me happy, and I want to see the completed picture of this looking as good as it possibly can. And I think that's what needs to happen. Obviously this might hinder some tail shaft things here, but I will suss that out in a sec. I think, like, if I have to take 10 mil out of the tail shaft, so be it. But I reckon I'll get away with it. So yeah, that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to suss the tail shaft out, and then modify some mounts. Like I said, so basically I'll reuse these mounts sort of thing, and I'll just make an extension and a different plate and stuff, and yeah, we'll squeeze her in. So we're not done yet. Mounting the SR, we're going above and beyond here. I have been tinkering, and this is what I've come up with. So I've just ripped out the engine mounts, the standard ones. Engine is currently floating. So I have moved the pickup points, or the engine mount points, 30 mil forwards basically. So the engine is going to move backwards 30 mil. So I've tried to use the standard mounts. So obviously that's the standard mount that bolts to the block. And then I've just modified it a little bit. I spent way too long mucking around with this, to be honest. But yeah, you can see that's what the standard mount looked like to start with. And now that's what the modified version of it looks like. Looks like it's on the piss. It's not. It's just because like this plate here is ground on an angle. Driver's side, same thing. So I've just moved that point further forwards. So I actually just cut that piece off and then put another bend in that standard mount, and then welded a plate on it. And then yeah, that's the standard 323 rear-wheel drive engine mounts, and that fits on there like so. Gonna bolt those bad boys back in. I've come up with an idea for the gearbox cross member, so I'm about to make it in a sec. So these are just some 10 mil bits of plate. that will space that gearbox crossmember down, just to get the trans tunnel clearance at the top, like where the shifter bolts are, sort of thing, and move it back. So move this gearbox crossmember back in the car, in turn move the gearbox back in the car with the engine. So I'm actually going to move it back, like obviously these I've moved the holes 30 mil. These are actually going to go 35. Reason behind that is when I put the gearbox crossmember in as a test fit, there was just a little bit of load, like I had to like lever it into position sort of thing. Obviously it's still bolted in, but that was just a movement in the rubber sort of thing. Yeah, I'm going to move this one 35 mil. So yeah, pretty much I'm going to weld that onto there and weld that one onto there. And then yeah, just obviously that's where the 2 holes are to start with now. And I'm just going to go and re-drill some holes there. So I'm going to get onto that and then we'll bolt this bad boy back in. Welded and painted and bolted. Fits mint. Spot on, right in the center of that trans tunnel, or shifter hole I should say. The bolts are slotted, like the holes are slotted on this cross member anyway, but yeah, she bolts up mint as. Don't worry about the assorted hardware. I'll get some freshies for it before it goes back together for the final time. Everything looks too good. Very stoked on it. So we'll drop this down and have a look up the top. Way better. So much better. So much better. Yep. I am very, very happy with that. That's, yep. I can sleep better tonight. That's the main thing. Plenty of clearance on everything. Next video, I think we're going to dive into some header building. So yeah, bit of fab work again. I've got a bit of a plan, but we'll dive into that next week. And that is going to be it for part 1 of the Datsun SR20 conversion series. If you like the video, make sure you hit the like button, leave a comment and let me know. Did you learn something today? I definitely did. Datsun SR20 conversions, very easy in this case. Datsun 200B anyway. Obviously next week I'm diving into some header fabrication. So if you want to stay up to date, make sure you hit the subscribe button to check that out. Thanks for watching, you legends. We'll see you next week.